So welcome to Module 1 of the Takeoff and Estimate Software Skills course. In this module, the intention is that you'll learn how to import some PDF plans into PlansXpress, and you'll learn how to scale the drawing. You'll practice tracing over walls, windows, doors, structural openings, and you'll have a go at drawing a lean-to roof. You'll learn how to set items on screen to be non-estimated items, and I'll show you how to view a 3D visualization of your plans. Now, some of you are using the full version of PlansXpress, whereas some of you are using the cut-down takeoff kit. I'll explain any differences as we go along because there are some minor differences in how the software works, but I'll explain that, so hopefully that should be clear. Okay, so hopefully you have launched PlansXpress and you can see it in front of you. If not, please launch it now. If you're using the full version of PlansXpress, this is the first main difference actually. If you're using the full version of PlansXpress, when you open it up, you'll get this new drawing dialog box pop up. If you have the takeoff version of PlansXpress, bear with me for a minute or two, as you don't have to go through this template selection process. When you open up the takeoff version, the import box loads, so that's fine. Leave that in front of you and don't click anything for now, and you'll be able to pick up what we're doing in a minute or two. Okay, so if you have the full version of PlansXpress, from the new drawing dialog box, you can select a drawing template. Now, the drawing templates control the page size, the page scale, and the orientation. There are also options to include a title and notes block. When you're planning to import a drawing into PlansXpress, the easiest way to do it is to select a drawing template which matches the size and scale of the drawing you're importing. So if you're importing an A3 1 to 50 plain page, if you're importing an A3 1 to 50 PDF or image, then the best idea is to select the A3 1 to 50 plain page template, if you see what I mean. So matching up the scale and size will make life easier. For our example today, then, if you could select the A3 1 to 50 plain page option. So A3 1 to 50 plain page, it's about halfway down the list on the left, and then click OK. If you've got the takeoff version, just bear with us. And then PlansXpress is set up with your page size and scale. You can check the page size and the scale at the bottom of the screen here. You'll see it says size A3 and then scale 1 to 50. So before we import our plans, just a quick tour of the PlansXpress screen. All of the tools that you need to draw your plans can be found on the ribbon at the top of the screen. There are several different tabs along the ribbon, and they all contain different tools, and we're going to use several of the different tabs today. If you have the takeoff version, the tabs are slightly different. I'm running the full version here, but as I said before, I'll explain which tab you need to use as we go along. Underneath, we've got what I'll refer to as the drawing area. So if you've got the full version, you'll see a page template outline, page border I should say, and you can actually draw within the page boundary and outside it. And then underneath we've got the command window. The command window gives you instructions on how to draw or place every item. Okay, so let's import our PDF plans. So those of you with takeoff kit, you'll have the import dialog box in front of you. But for those of you with the full version, you need to go to the Scan and Trace tab. So if you go to the ribbon at the top of the screen, and the second from last tab there is called Scan and Trace. Scan and Trace tab contains all of the tools that you need to import and take off existing plans. One of the buttons on there is called Import Drawing. So if you click the Import Drawing button on the left-hand side, that will launch the Import Wizard dialog box. So if you've got the takeoff version, you've been looking at this screen from the outset. Now, using the Import Wizard, you can import various different file types. You can import PDFs, images, and CAD files. If you import a CAD file, so something that you might export from AutoCAD and similar, so file types such as DWGs and DXFs, if you import those into PlansXpress, you can click on existing what we call snap points within the drawing, and that makes it easier and quicker to trace over your plans. So if you've got a DWG or DXF file available to you, that's the best route to take. For our training today, though, we're going to import a PDF, and the reason for that is that that's the most commonly available file type, and from speaking to builders, it's the file type that they most regularly use and import. So ensure that PDF is selected, the top option, and then click Next. And at this point, you need to locate the sample plans that we emailed over to you. So I've got them saved on my desktop, but if you can navigate to wherever you have saved them on your computer, and you should have a file type called Rapid Takeoff Example Plans PDF. So if you can locate that file and click Open, that's the way we select the PDF file. After a moment, then the import wizard launches again, and you can see a preview of the PDF that you've selected. Now, some PDFs have multiple pages, and you can click between the different pages using the arrows at the top of the import wizard. So if you click right, you go to the next page. This PDF has just got 2 pages. So if you click left, you can go back to the first page. Now on page 1 of the PDF, you'll see we've got some visualizations of the extension that we're going to take off and estimate during our training course. If you click onto page 2, you'll see the plans that we're going to use to trace over. So you can see it's a fairly simple lean-to extension to the rear of a house. So use the arrows to select the plans that you want to import. So in this case, we need to have page 2 selected because that's got the plan view of our extension. There's some other options at the top of the import wizard here. You'll see we've got some rotation options. So if the PDF that you're importing is not the correct orientation, you can use these arrows to rotate it. We've also got an import quality slider. Now, the higher the quality of the drawing, the more memory and processing power it's going to require of your computer. So in order to not overload your computer's memory, we suggest you import at the standard quality to begin with. If when you do that you find that the imported PDF is blurry, you can then go back through the import process and choose either the better or best import quality and try again and see if that's better. But because it requires quite a lot of processing power of your computer, you're better off going with the standard import quality where possible, and then your software will run more quickly. If it's a higher resolution image, then you're going to find things slow down perhaps a little bit. So that's the reason for going with standard where you can. But of course, if it's not, it obviously depends on the quality of the image you're importing. So you can change that to better or best quality as needed. If at this point you realise you've selected the wrong PDF, you can click the folder icon on the left-hand side here to select a different image. Okay, so assuming you've selected the correct PDF, you've located the page you want to import, and the rotation is correct, you would then click the Finish button. And you can easily sit here looking at your screen thinking what's going on, the software is not doing anything. If that ever happens, always have a look at the command window. I'm just going to make mine a little bit bigger here, because it might be that the software is waiting for you to do something, and in this case it is. So the instructions in the command window will tell you what you need to do to place or draw any item. So at the moment it's telling us to give the first corner point. And what we're going to do is we're going to place the PDF, which is now like an image, we're placing that onto the drawing page. If you have the full version of PlansXpress, you'll obviously have this page border on screen. And what you can do to place your PDF image is you can click on the bottom left-hand corner of the page where you'll find the origin. So place your cursor over that corner and just click once with the left mouse button to place one corner of your PDF. If you're running the takeoff version and you don't have that page outline, you can click the left mouse button anywhere on the screen. It doesn't matter, as long as it's in this drawing area here. So one click places the first corner, and then if you look at the command window again, it's now saying to click to place the second corner point. So you can see as I move my cursor, it's changing the size and the position of the PDF. So again, if you're using the full version, what you want to do is try and match the PDF, which is the blue outline, with the page border as much as you can. If you're using the takeoff version, just move your mouse up and to the right and place the second corner of the PDF wherever seems sensible to you, because you haven't got that page border to work with. Don't worry about the size of it at the moment, because we're going to rescale it in a moment. So once you've either matched it up to the page border or you've placed the top right corner where you're happy with it, click the left mouse button once more and your PDF will appear on the screen. It may be that you are zoomed in and you need to zoom out to see it better. Now, to do any zooming in the software, you need to use the scroll wheel on your mouse. That's why a mouse with a scroll wheel is a system requirement, so you can't use PlansXpress effectively on your laptop without a mouse, and it does need to have a scroll wheel. So if you scroll the scroll wheel towards the screen, it zooms in. If you scroll the mouse wheel away from the screen, it zooms out. So that's a really important skill to master. Now when you're zooming in, it zooms in around the position of the cursor. So if I place my cursor at the top right of the drawing page, it will zoom in towards that top right corner. So if you just practice scrolling in and out for a moment, focusing on something on screen, so choose a label or a symbol to scroll into, scroll out again, choose something different. So that's a really important skill, being able to navigate around the screen. Okay, brilliant. So we've imported the PDF. Now, it may be once you've imported your drawing that you need to rescale it, or maybe you just want to check that the scale is correct, and we can quickly and easily do that. So what you need to do to rescale the image is to choose either a scale line. So if you've got a drawing with a scale line, you can use that, or you can select a dimension line on the screen which you are going to measure. The longer the line that you use, the more accurate your scaling will be. So if we have a look at this drawing, if we focus in on the dimension lines at the back of the proposed extension here, you'll see the longest dimension line we've got is this 4.8 meter long dimension line here. So we'll use that as our point of reference. On the Scan and Trace tab, there is a button called Measure Image Scale. So if you click on the Measure Image Scale button and then refer to the command window. Now at the moment it's telling us to select the edge or outer frame of the image to measure its scale. This is a bit of a confusing message. If you scroll out, basically what it means is we have to select the edge of the PDF image that we've just imported. And to do that, if you can just watch me do it first and then have a go yourself. So to do that, what we need to do is draw a selection box around the edge of the PDF image. So I'm drawing a selection box from the right to the left. Oops, it won't let me do it again. Hold on a second. Let me just click the Measure Image Scale button again. So if you hold down your left mouse button and move your cursor from the right to the left, you'll see a green selection box appears. Now PlansXpress is quite clever. There's a couple of different selection boxes you can use, but when you do a right to left selection box, it selects anything which is partially included in that box. So you could draw just a tiny box like this and it would select the PDF, or you can draw a massive box and it will select the whole PDF. So just do a right to left selection box anywhere over the edge of the PDF. It has to be the edge, not in the middle of it. And then release the left mouse button. And what you're doing is you're selecting the PDF. And the software needs to know which PDF the line is that you're measuring. Yeah, so that's the first stage in rescaling. The next instruction tells you to give the first point. So what we're going to do is we're going to click at either end of this 4.8 meter long dimension line, and we're going to use that as our reference. So to do this accurately, what you want to do is zoom in to one end of the dimension line. So let's start with the left-hand one. So place your cursor over the end of the dimension line, scroll your mouse wheel towards the screen, and then place your cursor as accurately as you can on the intersection between the dimension line and the vertical line here. Obviously there's going to be a few mils of tolerance here, and it doesn't matter in the scheme of things, but do it as carefully as you can. And then click the left mouse button to place that first point on the dimension line. So once you've done that, you might want to zoom out again. And I'm going to teach you another mouse skill here, another really handy one. You can do what's called panning, or dragging the drawing around your screen. And to do that, you need to use your scroll wheel, but you press and hold the scroll wheel down. So if you press and hold the scroll wheel down and move the page to the left, you'll see that's a really handy way of moving around the drawing. And you can do that even when you're in the middle of doing something. So we're in the middle of drawing this line that we're measuring, but we can still use that scroll wheel to pan around the drawing screen. So that's another really useful skill to practice. So once you've got the point you're going to focus in on in the middle of your screen, you can then use your scroll wheel again to zoom in, to zoom towards the screen. Now, to make this line as accurate as possible, we can press the Shift key on your keyboard. So if you find the Shift key, hold it down, and you'll see that it's locking this line that we're drawing here into a horizontal. If I just show you, if I scroll out for a second, if I'm further out, you can see that actually what it's doing, it's locking the position of the cursor into 45 or 90 degree angles. So if you want to draw something straight or something at 45 degrees, you can hold down the Shift key on your keyboard. So if I zoom back in here, so while we're doing this, it will make sure the line is straight and again help us ensure it's as accurate as possible. So once you're happy with the position of your cursor and you think it's at the end of this dimension line as much as possible, press the left mouse button again. And when you press the left mouse button, this distance dialog box will pop up. So now you need to type in the length that this line should be. So it should be 4,800 millimeters long. Type in 4,800 and then click OK. And there was a subtle movement after we did that. What happened was that PlansXpress compared the actual measurement of the line we've just marked out with what the line should be, and then it's adjusted it and corrected the scale of the image. So now that line on our PDF is definitely 4.8 meters long. That means everything else that we subsequently draw on screen will have accurate dimensions to within, as I said, a few millimeters of accuracy. So we've imported the drawing, we've rescaled the image. Now we want to check that we have switched on trace mode. Now trace mode, when you're in trace mode, everything you draw appears in bold pen, so it can clearly be seen over the top of the existing plans. So on the Scan and Trace tab again, there's a button called Toggle Trace Mode. So if you click that button, you won't necessarily see anything happen on screen, but when we start drawing in a moment, you will see how trace mode works. So hopefully you're getting to grips with zooming in and out using the scroll wheel on your mouse. So just to recap, place your cursor where you want to zoom in, scroll towards the screen to zoom in, scroll away from the screen to zoom out. And the other skill we were practicing is panning around the screen. So to do that, hold down the scroll wheel on your mouse and move the page around as required. We're going to carry on doing those zooming and panning skills throughout the training, so it's a good idea to get the hang of those. Okay, so let's now add some construction lines to the drawing. Placing construction lines on your drawing enables you to quickly click onto what we call snap points on the drawing to trace over the walls. You can trace over your plans without using construction lines, but using them I find speeds things up and helps you do it accurately. So construction lines are in a slightly different place depending on which version you've got. If you have the full version, go to the Drawing and Annotation tab. If you have the Takeoff kit, go to the Drawing Tools tab. And either on the Drawing and Annotation tab or the Drawing Tools tab, you will find a section called Construction Lines. We want to start with the Vertical Construction Line button. So if you click Vertical Construction Line, then move your cursor onto the drawing area. You'll see that once you've selected a construction line, your cursor is effectively holding that construction line, and when you click the left mouse button, you will place the construction line on the page. So what we're going to do is we're going to place the vertical construction lines from left to right. So we're going to do a construction line to the left of the existing building, to the left of the extension, and to the right of the extension. So again, you might want to zoom into your drawing so you can take a closer look at what you're doing and make sure you're doing it accurately. So place your cursor over the outside of the wall on the left, zoom in as far as you want to, place your cursor over the middle of that wall, and then, I should say, not the middle of the wall, the outside of the wall, and then click the left mouse button to place the construction line. And the construction line will appear in blue once you've placed it. But you can see there's another construction line attached to my cursor still, and that's because PlansXpress is ready to place another construction line, because it knows that often you want to place multiple construction lines in one go. So now we can place the next construction line. So you might want to zoom out using your scroll wheel, you might want to pan around using the scroll wheel as well, holding it down. So move your drawing page around until you're happy. Place your cursor over the outside of the extension wall, and once you're happy with its position, click the left mouse button to place the second construction line. And then in your own time, carry on and place the third construction line. So once you've done it, hopefully you will have 3 construction lines which look like this. If you place a construction line in the wrong place, if I just place an extra one here, what you can do is you can select it. If we do that right to left selection box again, that will select the construction line. You can see it appears dashed, and there's a red square here called a handle. You can press the delete key on your keyboard to get rid of it. So don't worry if you place any in the wrong position. You can delete them like that. So once you've placed your 3 construction lines, PlansXpress is still ready to place more. If you've finished using that particular tool, if you don't want to draw any more vertical construction lines, what you need to do is press the escape key on your keyboard. Pressing the escape key will always cancel the current action. So whatever you're doing, if you press escape, the current thing you're doing will end. So in this case, it's dropped that construction line tool. So let's now draw the horizontal construction lines as well. So on the ribbon at the top of the screen, you should see a horizontal construction line button. So we want to place 1 construction line at the back of the existing building and 1 at the back of the extension. So if you can use your scroll wheel to zoom in and place the horizontal construction line on the back wall of the house. And you might need to zoom out using the scroll wheel, hold down the scroll wheel to move the drawing page around, and then place the second horizontal construction line at the back of the extension. Click the left mouse button to place it. and then press the escape key on your keyboard to drop that particular tool. So hopefully your plans are looking something like this with that grid of construction lines in place. So once your construction lines are in place, you can really quickly click around and draw your walls, your external walls. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by drawing the back wall of the existing property. This obviously doesn't need to be estimated, but we need to draw the back wall so that we can estimate the structural opening that we're going to put into it, and also so that we can tee the new roof into the existing building. So once we've drawn this wall, we'll set it to be non-estimated, and that means when you import the drawing into PlansXpress, it will not be estimated, so there'll be no costs associated with it. So whenever you want to add any architectural elements to your drawing, you need to go to the Architectural tab, which is the tab on the far left. On the Architectural tab, the first button is called the External Walls. If you click on the external walls, bear with me a second. If that dimensions wizard has popped up, press the cancel button, the X button at the top right, because what I should have instructed you to do was to click the drop down menu, so the arrow where it says external. The buttons on the ribbon are intelligent. They remember the previous item that you've drawn. So if you click the image at the top, it selects the same wall type again. If you click where it says external with the drop down arrow, you can select your wall specification. So what you need to do is click external, and you'll see there we have got a range of different wall specs. So PlansXpress comes supplied with a range of different wall types, from traditional masonry, cavity walls, to timber frame, to SIPs and ICF walls. What we're going to select is a very typical brick and block cavity wall, which is the top one on the menu. So you can just hover your cursor over where it says brick and block cavity wall, or you can click on it. Either way, it will do the same thing. And then you need to select a template, a dimensional template for the wall. So for this example, let's select the ground floor cavity wall, 2.325 high, floor to joist height, multi-story. Oh, this one, multi-story. So it's actually the fifth one in the list. Ground floor cavity wall, 2.325 high floor to joist height, multi-story. Because it's a multi-story wall, what it does is it adds 225 mil on to the wall height for the floor above. So click on that, and then the dimensions wizard pops up. From here you can see the key dimensions of the wall. Now it's really important to note that the dimensions highlighted in yellow are those which are used to draw the wall. So obviously we need to know the height of the wall, the width of the leaves, and so on. Any input boxes in white are only required for estimating purposes. So the first screen of the dimensions wizard prompts you to enter the wall dimensions. Take a look at the different dimensions. You can hover your cursor over them to see exactly what it is that you need to type in. So we've got the external leaf thickness, the internal leaf thickness, and the height of coursing blocks above DPC if you're using any. As we're not estimating these walls, we can quickly skip through these screens. We just need to make sure that the yellow input boxes have got the correct dimensions in, so that the wall appears correctly in the plans. Obviously, as we're not estimating, we don't need to worry about coursing blocks. We can check the foundation width here. That's obviously important if it's being displayed on your drawing. Click next. You'll see we've got the cavity width. Again, that is important to the drawing. And we've got the splash course depth, which will appear on your elevation views. So just check you're happy with those. We're not going to change any for the training today, but just to point out that's where these different dimensions are. Okay, so As we're not interested in estimating any of these other items, as I said, we're just going to skip through and then click Finish. And PlansXpress is now ready to draw the wall. So if we take a look at the command window at the bottom, it's asking us to give the start point of the wall. So always make sure you refer to the command window there. It'll give you step-by-step prompts how to draw each item. Something like a wall is pretty self-explanatory, but something like a roof is a bit more tricky, and the instructions are really essential when you're doing something more complex like that. Okay, so we're going to draw this rear wall of the existing building from left to right. So place your cursor over the back left corner of the existing building. You might want to zoom in a little bit so you can see better. So if you place your cursor over the point where the two construction lines meet, you'll find what we call a snap point. It's an intersection snap point in this case. Once you've drawn items on screen, you'll find various different snap points. You can find end points, insertion points, perpendicular points. But the snap points mean it's easy to click onto items that are already on screen. If you can't see any snap points, so if you haven't got the word intersection popping up on screen, it may be that you need to switch on snap mode. And the quickest way to do that is to press the F7 key on your keyboard. So F7 switches on snap mode. So once you've got snap mode on and you can see that intersection point, click the left mouse button to place the first point of your rear wall. Now when you're drawing walls, you'll see an outline of the wall appears with a red line to one side and an arrow to one side. Excuse me a second, I'm just going to take a sip of my drink. Now when you're drawing a wall, you'll notice that this tab appears at the top of the screen here with some specific wall settings, namely the justification and the external side. Now the justification drop-down box tells PlansXpress which side of the wall to place with your mouse clicks. So at the moment it's placing the left hand side of the wall. Now click into the justification drop-down box and select one of the other options. Place your cursor back on the drawing and you can see the effect that the different justifications have on the position of your wall. So you can change the justification using the justification drop down there, or you can press the J key on your keyboard. Now the J key is a shortcut key. So try pressing J on your keyboard and you'll see it has exactly the same effect. It changes the point of the wall that you're placing. So we need to leave that set to left. So once you've had a play around with the justification, ensure the justification is set back to left and our wall will appear in the correct position. Now we also need to think about the external side, because the arrow on the wall outline here indicates the external side of the wall. So at the moment we've got the external side pointing inwards into our building. So we definitely need to change the external side. So again, you can select a different option from the drop-down box on the tab at the top of the screen. So if we select left, you can see the external side is in the correct position now. Alternatively, you can press the F key, F for Freddy, or F for flip is actually what it stands for. So if you press the F key, F for flip, it will flip your wall over. So that's the other way to change the external side. If you've got the PlansXpress shortcut key guide, that's really handy to print and have as a reference next to your laptop or your computer while you're doing your drawing. So when you're drawing walls, just to recap, the two main things you need to think about are the justification, am I placing the points on the right side of the wall, and the external side, has it got the leaves of my wall on the correct side. Okay, so now we're happy the justification and external side are correct. We can now, as the instructions are telling us to, we can give the next point, so we can indicate where the next point on the wall is. So I've zoomed out and I'm going to zoom in at the opposite end of the rear wall of this building. Scroll in using your mouse wheel, and you'll see there's another intersection point where these two construction lines meet. So once you've found that intersection point, click the left mouse button and your wall appears on screen. You'll see PlansXpress is still ready to draw more walls, and if you were tracing the entire building, you could do that now if you wanted to. But as I said, for takeoff purposes, we don't need to draw the entire existing building. So if we press the escape key on the keyboard, we can drop that wall drawing tool. And I can see, actually, I'm not sure how it looks on your computers at your end, but it's not actually in scan mode. So if I click back onto the scan and trace tab and click the toggle trace mode, this is what trace mode should appear like. So if yours isn't looking like this, click the toggle trace mode button again. Unfortunately, you can't see whether it's clicked on or off. I think it should change colour when you click it so you know whether it's switched on, but unfortunately you can't do that. Okay, so toggle trace mode is the button to click to click between the different modes and different ways of viewing your drawing. Okay, so we've drawn that rear wall of the existing building, but as I mentioned earlier, we now need to set it to be non-estimated, and that means that PlansXpress won't estimate this wall when we import the plans later on. So first of all, we need to select the wall. So if you zoom in and click on it with your left mouse button, you'll see handles appear indicating that it's been selected. Now once we've selected it, if you have the full version of PlansXpress, go to the Modify and Selection tab. If you have Takeoff Kit, you need to go to the Drawing Tools tab, and either on Modify and Selection or Drawing Tools, you'll find a button called Set Selection as Non-Estimated. So if you click Set Selection as Non-Estimated, you'll see a dialog box pops up saying, are you sure you want to set it to be non-estimated? And you click yes, I'm really sure. And then the hatching disappears. That indicates that it's non-estimated. The other way of checking that it's done what it should have done is to place your cursor over the wall, and in the list of properties which appear second from the bottom there, you'll see there's a line that says estimated and then no. If it says yes, then it hasn't worked, so you need to click on the wall, Modify and Selection, or Drawing Tools if you've got Takeoff Kit, and then Set Selection as Non-Estimated. So that's how you can set any item on screen to not be estimated, ready for your import into PlansXpress. So that's the existing wall drawn. So now, of course, we can draw the walls that we do want to estimate the rear extension here. So if we go back to the Architectural tab, click on the arrow under External Walls, select the Brick and Block Cavity Wall option again, and then we're going to select the 6th option down, ground floor cavity wall for 2.325 high, floor to joist height, single story template. As I said before, the multi-story templates add an additional 225 mm for the floor above. So if it's a single story extension like this one, we don't want that. So we want the single story template. Click to select it. And the dimensions wizard pops up. So you'll remember page 1 prompts you to enter some of the wall dimensions. The information you enter here is used to draw the walls in our plans, but also to estimate our walls once we import them. So review each dimension carefully, check you're happy with it. So the height of the wall is obviously determined by the template we selected. External leaf thickness, internal leaf thickness, we'll leave them all as the defaults. They're obviously set to sensible standard figures, but you can change them as you need for your particular job. So once you've had a look at those dimensions, click Next. So as we saw before, page 2 deals with the foundations. A couple of tools I'd like to show you. If you click the Show Tech Tips tick box at the bottom of the wizard. That switches on a handy tech tip. Tech tips explain what it is that you need to enter into any particular input box. So you need to be clicked into an input box to see the tech tip. So for this particular screen, we've got the foundation depth below site strip, the width of the foundation, and then we've got two depths of foundation concrete. We've got a structural concrete, and there's an option to add in a mass concrete if you need one. We're going to leave them as they are for now. As I say, all of these are set to sensible defaults, but you would, if you were doing a real takeoff, you would want to go through and tweak them at this point as appropriate for your job. On the right hand side, we've got another couple of options here: plank and strut the excavation. Let's set that to no, because it's a shallow excavation and it's not going to need supporting. And underneath that, we've got the bulking of the excavated material. This is the multiplying factor that soil bulks up by when it's removed from the ground and put into a skip. So typically soil increases in volume by about 50%, so I'm told. So this figure here goes towards calculating how many skips are required. So leave that set at 1.5 unless you've got any particular reason for changing it. Of course, all this information we're entering now and checking now, so that PlansXpress can produce an accurate estimate for the cost of building the walls from foundations and footings up. So the third screen deals with the footing details. At the bottom of the dimensions wizard, there's a show tech labels tick box. If you tick that, and some handy diagram labels will pop up on screen. So if you just have a look at those labels and hover your cursor over the various dimension input boxes just to check what it is that it's asking for. So as we mentioned before, the key ones in terms of the drawing are the splash course depth and the cavity width below ground, but of course you want to make sure they're all correct when you're doing a takeoff. On the right hand side, we've got options for insulation and DPC, which are set to yes, as you'd expect. We aren't going to change any of the dimensions at the moment. They're fairly typical, but of course change them as you need be when you're doing a real job. Click next. Page 4 deals with the finishing options for the wall. So on the right hand side, you'll see options for plastering the wall, decorating the wall. You can enter the number of skirting boards and whether the skirting boards need to be primed and decorated. Those are all set to yes by default. The number of skirting boards is set to 1 because it's a single story wall. If it were a multi-story wall, that would be set to 2. 1 for the downstairs, 1 for the upstairs. Okay, so if you're happy with the plastering and decoration finishes, click Finish. So PlansXpress is now ready to draw the wall now that we've specified it. So the command window is telling us to give the start point. This time we're going to start on the right hand side of the building and we're going to draw the extension walls in a backwards N shape, I guess. So if you can place your cursor over the point where the extension joins the existing building on the right hand side and zoom in, there you'll locate maybe an intersection point, possibly an end point. I saw the end point pop up at one moment. It's actually the same point because it's the end of a wall, but it's also an intersection point of a couple of construction lines. So the same snap point might have multiple names. So once you've found that end point or the intersection points, click the left mouse button to place the start of the walls. So whenever we're placing anything on screen, we click and release the left mouse button. We don't hold down the mouse button at all. So you'll remember that the arrow identifies the external side of the wall, so that's in the wrong place at the moment, and the red line indicates where the justification of the wall. So justification is actually all right, but we need to change the external side. So using the drop down box at the top of the screen, change the external side to right. But now we've changed the external side, the justification is wrong. So we need to change the justification to right as well. So you'll see from the red line that it's placing the wall in the correct position, and the external side of the wall is in the right place. So we've got our leaves the right way around. So once you're happy that the wall's been drawn the correct way around, you can then just trace your way around the extension. So find an intersection point, or just there we saw a perpendicular point. So it's just telling us it's perpendicular to the point we've just placed. So again, that snap point is correct. That's fine. So click to place the next point and continue in the same way, finding those intersection or perpendicular points where the construction lines meet to continue the loop back around to the existing building. Now once you've placed that final point, you'll see PlansXpress is still telling us to give the start point, so we need to press the escape key on the keyboard. Just seeing, sorry, I've stopped to read a question here. Danny's saying he's struggling to draw a horizontal construction line. So construction lines are on drawing and annotation or drawing tools, and there's one there called horizontal. So if you click on horizontal and then you click to position it on your drawing, hopefully you can catch up, Danny. Give me a shout if there's anything else you need help with. Okay, otherwise just continue at your own pace. I am actually recording this training, and I will make it available to Joe. He will share it with you, so that if anybody wants to go back over today's training, just to recap what we've done or to do it at their own pace, that's absolutely fine. So I'll make sure Joe passes that on to you. Right, so I'm going to press escape to drop this horizontal construction line. So we'd finished drawing our extension walls here. We pressed the escape key to drop the wall drawing tool, but you'll see that the walls haven't quite teed in correctly here. If that ever happens, you can click the refresh button at the top right of your screen. So it's a green circle with 2 arrows in, a bit like a recycling icon. So if you click refresh, you'll see the walls are redrawn and teed in correctly. Okay, so we've drawn our extension walls. Let's now add in some wall starters. Okay, sorry for the pause again. Just reading another comment here. Okay, so we were going to add some wall starters in. That's what we're doing next. So if you click on the arrow, if you go back to the architectural tab and click on the arrow under external walls, about just over halfway down, there's an option called wall starters. So we can add some wall starter symbols to our plan, which will then be estimated when we import our job to PlansXpress. So if you click the wall starters option and then click the 2.325 high wall starter, this dimensions wizard pops up. Excuse me, my voice is giving out on me already. I'll just take a quick sip of water again. Okay, so it's set up for a 2.325 high wall. So there's an option here to type in how many hours it will take to fit the wall starter. I'm going to change that. Let's say it's going to take half an hour. Whoop. Half an hour to fit the wall starter. Is the joint going to be sealed? And it's adding on an allowance for any sundry items such as drill bits that you're going to need to do that job. So we'll leave that all set up as it is, and then click finish. So we've specified our wall starter, And if you move your cursor around, you'll see that there's now a wall starter symbol attached to your cursor. So I'll show you how to place that step by step. So let's start by placing the wall starter on the left hand side of the extension, and we'll do the external leaf first. So what you want to do is place your cursor over the right hand side of the external leaf and then click. So once you've found that intersection point, press the left mouse button to place the wall starter. You'll see it's upside down at the moment. And then what we need to do is move our cursor so that the wall starter is correctly orientated. So you need to move your cursor to the left. You can even press the Shift key on your keyboard to make sure that it's drawing it straight. And then click the left mouse button to register the orientation or the rotation of the wall starter symbol. Now, if you haven't caught that, if I did it too quickly, I'm going to do it again, so don't worry. If you want to place another identical wall starter, there's a shortcut for doing that. If you click the right mouse button, whenever you click the right mouse button, it will repeat the last action. So if you've just drawn a wall starter and you want to draw another identical one, click the right mouse button. So we'll place this one on the internal leaf of the same part of the wall. So again, we're going to click first on the right hand side of that internal leaf. We'll find the end point there, or whatever snap point you find. So that's positioning the wall starter. If you look down here, you can see it's telling us what to do. So first we place it, so we give the insertion point, and then we rotate it. So once you've placed it, move your cursor to the left, hold down the Shift key if you want to make double sure it's straight, and then click the left mouse button to place the wall starter. Okay, so we've done the two wall starters on the left hand side. So you might want to zoom out and then pan across to the right hand side of the wall, and we'll do exactly the same thing on the right hand side. So click the right mouse button to draw another wall starter. So we're going to place it on the right hand side of the leaf of the wall, move our cursor to the left and click to place it once the rotation is correct. Click the right mouse button, position the wall starter to the right hand side of the leaf, click to place it, move your cursor to the left and then click to place the wall starter once the rotation is correct. So there we've got our four wall starters, if I can get my words out. Okay, so wall starters are in place. Let's now add the opening to the existing wall. So you can see from the original drawing here, there is a large structural opening. Once you import the drawing into PlansXpress, PlansXpress will estimate the cost of forming the opening in the existing wall, as well as all of the materials such as the universal beam, the pad stones, the engineering bricks, the plastering, and so on. So we're going to go back to the architectural tab and we're going to select the openings and steelworks drop down menu. So click on the arrow at the bottom. Okay, bear with me just 1 second everyone. I can see Steve saying the main wall of his house is still estimated. So if this wall is estimated, you can simply just click on it, left mouse button to click and select the main wall of the house. Then go to Modify and Selection and click Set Selection as Non-Estimated. If you're using the takeoff version, you need to go to the Drawing Tools. Set Selection as Non-Estimated is on Drawing Tools. The development team like to keep me on my feet by putting things in different places. So yeah, Modify and Selection or Drawing Tools and then Set Selection as Non-Estimated to remove it from the estimate. Okay, so back to openings and steelwork, and the top item on the menu is called Structural Opening to Existing Wall, which is exactly what we want because we've got an existing wall and we want to put a new opening into it. You can see we've got dimensional templates for various sizes of opening. These are just starting points with the appropriate weight size of steel included in them. If it were the case that you needed an opening that was slightly smaller than 2.4 meters, you could still use the small opening, or something slightly larger than the large opening. You could still use that template, but you would then need to adjust the dimensions within the template. And then when you're in PlansXpress, you would need to check the RSJ, which has been specified, and check that it's suitable for the size of opening you're doing. These are just starting points. So we're going to select the medium opening template. And we're going to work through the dimensions wizard, and there's a few things we need to look at here. So first of all, we need to review the opening width and height. We're going to change the opening width to 3.6 meters. Height of 2.1 is fine. We've got the lintel bearing at each end, which is set to 150 millimeters, which is fairly standard. So we'll leave that as it is. Then we have several choices on the right hand side for the packing of the underside of the lintel. So you'll probably want pad stones. That's set to yes by default. You can change it to no if you need to for any reason. And then you can type in the number of bricks and slates required for packing. I'm going to leave them as they are, but you can change them if you want to, just to play around. Finally, we've got the bulking factor for spoil. The bulking factor calculates how much of a skip is required to remove the spoil from site. So it's working on the assumption that when the bricks and blocks are thrown into the skip, they're going to take up roughly twice as much space as they do in the wall. So it's going to calculate the skip space required accordingly. So leave that as it is unless you've got any reason to change it. If you click next, the second screen deals with plastering to the structural opening. So we've got the reveal depth. I'm going to change that to 0.3 meters. We've got the spacing of noggings to steels, the length of those noggins, and then we've got some plastering options. Are the reveals going to be plastered? How many angle beads are needed? And are we painting the reveals? Of course, these details aren't needed to draw the structural opening, but we're actually building your estimate. Even though we're in PlansXpress, we're doing some of the estimating as we go along. So once you're happy with those options, click Finish. And the command window is telling us to give the insertion point. So tell it where to place the structural opening, basically. So if you place your cursor over the rear wall of the existing house, you'll see the symbol for the structural opening appears on the wall. You might want to scroll your mouse wheel towards the screen so you can see where the opening was on the original plans. What we're going to do is just place the cursor by eye using the imported plans as a guide. It is possible to place structural openings and windows and doors more accurately by measuring the distance from the end of a wall or other opening. But for the purposes of taking off, this is usually accurate enough to do it this way. So place your symbol over the top of the symbol on the original PDF plans. Once you're happy with the position of the structural opening, click the left mouse button and the structural opening will be placed. So that's the structural opening dealt with. You'll need to press the escape key on your keyboard because PlansXpress is ready to place another structural opening. So if you had multiple identical ones, you could do them all in one go. So we've got our opening in there. Now let's have a look at the floor. So we're going to draw a concrete slab. That just takes a minute or two to do. So back on the architectural tab, there is a flooring drop-down menu. Click on the arrow under flooring. And just under halfway down, there is a floor slabs option. And now we have different slabs set up for houses, extensions, garages, and so on. And I think the main differences between them are the plant allowances. So we're going to select an extension slab, as you'd imagine, for an extension. And here you can start selecting the spec of your floor from the outset. We're going to go for the unreinforced slab this time. So let's switch on the tech tips by clicking Show Tech Tips and Show Tech Labels at the bottom of the Dimensions wizard. And you can see some labels appear and an explanation of what we need to type in. So check you're happy with the thickness of the sand blinding and subbase. Click Next. Here we've got the thickness of the slab. So let's say we want to change that to 150 mil. So type in 0.15. I should mention that PlansXpress works in meters. So all of your dimensions need to be typed in meters. If you type them in millimeters, you'll be out by a factor of 1,000 and your estimates will be a little bit crazy. So we've got the thickness of the slab typed in there, and then there are options for including DPM, insulation and reinforcement. Of course, we selected an unreinforced slab, so those are set to no. If you selected a reinforced slab, they'd be set to yes. So you could decide whether you wanted reinforcement underneath or above the slab. There's an option for power float finishing the slab. That's set to yes. So click Next. Of course, we're whizzing through them today, but you would obviously put a little bit more consideration into these different options when you're doing an estimate for real. So finally then, you can type in the number of hours or days that these different plant items will be needed for the concrete slab. So I'm not going to fill anything in today, but if you just cast your eye over that list, you would type in how many days or hours you require a plate compactor, wheelbarrow, shovel, and so on. So we'll click Finish for now. Now you want to have a look at the instructions for placing the floor. The first instruction says give the first corner of the floor. It says in brackets on the supporting wall. You can ignore that in this case. That instruction on supporting wall 1 relates to suspended floors. It doesn't matter which way around you draw it for a slab. So let's locate an intersection point at on the outside of the extension. Well, not on the outside, on an inner corner on the rear wall of the extension, I should say. So locate an endpoint there. Click to place the first corner of the wall of the floor. Sorry. Now it's telling us to give the second corner of the floor. So find the internal corner on the opposite side of the extension. Click to place again. And then it says indicate the length of the floor. Again, the bit in brackets is referring to a suspended floor, so we obviously haven't got a clear span of joists in this case. So literally just find the nearest snap point on the opposite side of the floor and click to place the floor area. So what we've done, we've clicked place one corner point, second corner point, and then we've indicated how long the floor is. So you can do it either way around. The orientation doesn't matter. Once you've placed your slab, this box pops up asking us if we want to place any perimeter insulation. So let's say yes we do. Click yes. We get a dimensions wizard just asking us to check the depth of the perimeter insulation. You could adjust that here if you needed to, but we'll leave it as it is for now. And then we'll click Finish. And now all we need to do is, it's saying give the start point, we need to click around the perimeter of the floor to indicate where the where the insulation will go. So find an end point on one of the corners, click to place the first point, move along to the next corner, find the end point, click to place the second point, and then keep going in this way all the way around the perimeter of our slab. And then click back to the start point, and that will complete the loop. And then we need to press the escape key on the keyboard to say we've finished drawing the perimeter insulation. And you might just be able to make out the grey dashed line around the perimeter, which shows us where the insulation is. That box pops up again saying, do you want to place perimeter insulation to this slab? That's because sometimes you might draw multiple sections of slab and then do multiple perimeters of multiple lots of perimeter insulation in one go. So we'll click no for now. We've finished with the perimeter insulation. So that's the concrete slab and the perimeter insulation drawn and also specified for the estimate. So now let's have a go at popping in some doors and windows. So let's pop the bifold doors in to the rear of the extension. On the architectural tab, find the doors drop down button, click on the arrow at the bottom, and we're going to select bifold doors. So you want to find bifold doors and then the aluminium option. Software is set up with multiple sizes of bifold door, so it's just a case of selecting the one you want. So for this, for these plans, for this estimate, we're going to use a 3 meter wide. So we want the bifold 3000 by 2100 mm 4-panel door. So bifold 3000 by 2100 4-panel. Click on it to select it. So we can review the door height and width. Here we've got the bulking factor for spoil. That's only relevant when you're forming the opening. So we can ignore that. Click next. We've got the reveal and jamb details for the door. So we'll just skip through these today. And then we've got the plastering and threshold board details. So there are options for plastering the reveal and the sill using an internal threshold board, and then some dimensions relating to the threshold board. The very final screen deals with the decoration to the door, but also to the threshold board, sills, reveals, the frame, and so on. So because this is an aluminium door, there's no decoration to the frame or door internally or externally, but there is a primer and paint for the threshold board, and the reveals are going to be painted and the sealant is going to be applied. Of course, the specification would vary depending on the type of door that you've chosen at the outset. So we'll leave those as they are. We'll click finish, and then we can place the door in exactly the same way as we placed the structural opening. So you might want to drag your drawing page by pressing down the scroll wheel. You might want to zoom in by scrolling your mouse wheel towards the screen. And then when you place your cursor over the wall, you'll see a symbol of where the door is going to be placed. Once you're happy with its position, click the left mouse button and the door symbol appears. But we haven't finished drawing the door yet. The instructions are telling us to give the door alignment. So if you were placing an internal door at this point, you could indicate the hinge side of the door. For our bifold doors, we're just indicating the direction of opening. So for some doors, you need to indicate the direction of opening and the hinge side, but for these type of doors, we're just indicating the direction that they open in. So we want them to open outwards. So move your cursor outside the external wall and then click the left mouse button to place the doors. If you've finished placing doors of that specification, you need to press the escape key on your keyboard. PlansXpress is always eager to draw more, so don't forget to press the escape key. Okay, so now let's add this window in to the side of the extension. We can do that in a really similar way to the doors we just inserted. So on the architectural tab, click the Windows arrow, and we're going to select the PVCU standard windows, so nearly 2/3 of the way down. And then we're going to click PVCU windows, and we're going to select the 112C 600 by 1200 window, so the second one in the list. So select that 112C window. The dimension wizard comes up. So we're just going to really quickly whiz through this dimensions wizard now. So you can review the height and width of the window, the height of the lintel. That particular dimension is important for placing the window on the elevation. It tells the software the height of the window basically. Then we'll click next. Very similar to the door dimensions wizard, so we've got the reveal and jamb details, the plastering and sill details, and the decoration spec for the window. So these are all set to sensible options. So we selected a PVCU window, so again there isn't any decoration to the inside or outside of the window. So we'll click finish. So the instructions are telling us to give the insertion point, so we literally just need to place it on the wall. So place your cursor over the wall, zoom in so you can see where the window is on the plans underneath. Once you're happy with its position, click the left mouse button and you'll see the window symbol appears. So PlansXpress wants to place another window of the same spec, so if you had an identical one on the opposite wall, you could place that there at this point. But if you've finished placing walls of this finished placing windows of this specification, press the escape key and drop that particular tool. So in a very similar way, you can add all sorts of different symbols to your drawing. You can add staircases, probably not to a single-story extension, but to a multi-story building. You could add plumbing and heating, electrics, kitchens, bathrooms, drainage, and so on. And they all work in a pretty similar way. So once you've mastered the skills we've been working on today with placing these different items, it's very similar principles required to place other architectural items. Alternatively, it might be that there are some components that you just want to add to your estimate once you're working in Estimator Express. So you might not want to draw your plumbing and heating on your plans. You might just want to estimate them in Estimator Express. That's fine. Same for your kitchen. You might just want to add in a lump sum cost for your fitted kitchen. So you don't have to draw everything that you want to estimate. There will be the opportunity to add those items in to your estimate at a later point. Okay, so Steve has just asked a really good question. Are you able to exactly place a window? The drawing says it's 900mm from the corner. Yeah, 900mm from both ends, isn't it? Can you adjust it to 900mm spot on? And the answer to that is yes, you can. Let me show you how. So I'm just going to zoom in so I can see this wall better. I'm going to do it on this side just because there's no window there. I'm going to click the right mouse button, and because I've just drawn a window, a 112C window, it remembers the exact specification of the window I've just placed. So right clicking will place the same one again. And you can see when you're placing a window, these dimensions appear on screen. There's a justification setting in the top of on the top of your screen here on the ribbon. So the first thing you need to do if you want to measure to the end of one window is change the justification. So let's say I want to change the justification to left. So now you can see with the lines that have appeared that it is measuring to the left hand side of my window. I'm just pausing for a moment. Okay. There are a couple of different keys that you need to use to place a window correctly using the measurements. The first one is your tab key. So if I press the tab key, you'll see the dimension in brackets, in those square brackets, changes. The other thing that dictates where the dimension in brackets appears is the cursor position. So if I put my cursor over the internal leaf, that dimension in brackets, which we call the active dimension, appears on the, it's measuring from the inside. That's obviously giving a different dimension, measuring from the inside or the outside. So if we want to measure 900 mil from the existing house to the window, we need to put our cursor on the external side of the wall. We need to make sure that the dimension in brackets is on the left-hand side of the window, as it is at the moment. And then we need to input the dimension. Now you can see just here at the bottom right of my drawing area, there is an input box here. So if I click into there, delete the contents at the moment, and then type in 900, this will control the position of my window. But I just realised what it's doing. It's not quite measuring from where I want it to. Right, I need to do this on the other side of the window. So I'm going to press tab, change my justification to right. Okay, so can you see now it's measuring 900 mil from the external corner of the extension. So that 900 mil that I've typed in has appeared in the square brackets. So it's placed it in the correct position now. So once you're happy that that dimension is correct, you then just click the left mouse button to place the window. Now that wasn't the clearest of explanations. If you bear with me just 1 second, I will look up a video which shows you exactly how to do that. Okay, so I have just opened up the HPXL support page. It's a good prompt to show you this actually. If you go to help.hpxl.co.uk, we have a support desk that has all sorts of help features on there. There's a list called PlansXpress Getting Started videos, and on there is one called Adding Windows. Oh, and Tom's popped up to offer his assistance. So if you watch that video, that will talk you through all of those different justification and active dimension options for placing windows. It's a slightly trickier method of doing it. Obviously, if you're drawing plans from scratch, you're going to want to know how to do that. So I will refer you to that video if you'd like to spend a bit more time practicing that particular skill. So the HPXL support site is help.hpxl.co.uk, and you should land on the solution home, and in there PlansXpress Getting Started videos. There's some really great content in there. Right, so I'll minimize that for now. Okay, so there's one more element that we need to add to our drawing here, and it's quite an important one. It's the roof. So you'll recall from the diagrams right at the start on the PDF that we imported that it's a really simple lean-to roof. So if we can go back to the architectural tab and click on the arrow under roofs, you'll see we've got a range of different roof types: flat roofs, SIPS roofs, small cut and truss roofs, which you would use if you were drawing dormers or bays, and then at the top we've got typical cut and truss roofs. So I'm going to select the cut roof, and I'm going to select the 30-degree cut roof. The roof we're going to draw actually has a 15-degree pitch. Again, as I said, with the templates for the structural openings, these are starting points and you can adjust them for your particular job. So we'll start with the roof with the lowest pitch and we can adjust that. So select the typical 30-degree cut roof, and then we need to work through the dimensions wizard. So the first thing we can change is the pitch of the roof. So click into pitch of roof side 1, delete 30 and change that to 15. There's a note here telling us that we for a lean-to roof we only need to enter the pitch into side 1. It will ignore anything in here. So I can delete that, or it can be set to 30, it doesn't make any difference. Obviously, if you're drawing an apex roof, it will want to know the pitch on both sides, but for a lean-to, it's happy with just the input in the side one box. So there's an input here for the thickness of the roof. You can tweak that if you need to. We haven't got any barn hips, obviously, so we can ignore this input. This dimensions wizard is for a universal roof, so it covers all roof types. If there's any inputs that aren't relevant to your roof type, just ignore them. On page 2, we can check the soffit width to the gables and to the eaves. Some screens you'll see have a secondary screen coming off them, so if you wanted to have a look in detail at the timber and roof strap details, you could click this button here. Anything on a secondary screen doesn't actually need reviewing all the time. It's set to sensible default values, and it's probably only if you're doing something a little bit unusual that you need to go in there and change anything. So we've put them on a secondary screen so as not to overwhelm you with too much information. So to get back from a secondary screen, there's a button at the bottom. It takes you back to the main screen here. Click Next. We have another screen that deals with the structural timbers to the roof, so the rafter centres, joist centres. This input relates to the hip corner ties, so we can ignore that. But you do want to have a think about barge boards and eaves fascias. So firstly, whether you want them. If you don't want them, switch that to no, and then the height of them. So we'll assume they're correct for this job. Bottom left again, you'll see this as a secondary screen. This time it deals with the gutters. So gutter clip fixing centres and supplied length of gutter. Pretty standard figures here, but you can come in here. This is where you need to change them if you want to change them. So we'll go back to the roof structural information and then we'll click Next. So we've got tiling and insulation options here. These inputs here relate to tile and halves, which we don't need to worry about. There's an option for sarking board. If you're working north of the border and you want to estimate sarking board, you can click Yes. Leave that set to No. One thing you will need to consider for every job is the spacing of your tile lath. That will vary, obviously. If you are using clay tiles, 0.1 would be correct, but if you're using a modern pan tile, like a concrete interlocking tile, you might need to change that to 0.3. So I'm going to change that. Tile lath, sometimes called tile battens, but change the spacing to 0.3. Leave the insulation usage factor. And then, as is typically the case with most of these dimensions wizard, it finishes with plastering and decoration. Obviously not plastering in this case, but decoration to your fascias and your soffits. These are set to no, as most people use PVC fascias these days. And we're going to assume we are with this extension. But if you're using softwood fascias and barge boards and so on, then you could set decoration to yes here. Okay, so once you're happy with the finishes, click Finish. So now we get a different selection box here. This is the roof type selection box. So you just need to select the shape or configuration of your roof. So there are options to draw an apex roof, or an apex valley, or an apex abutting a wall. So you'd select the top option if you're doing any of those. And then there's a few different hip options as well. Again, if you're doing a valley or abutting a wall, you'd select that option. But the option we want is the third one down, the lean-to roof. You can click here on the button, the radio button as it's called, or on the label, or on the diagram. Click anywhere to select your roof shape, then click OK. So PlansXpress is now ready to draw the roof. As I said before, roofs are a little bit more complex to draw. The software obviously needs to know the orientation of the roof and so on. So follow the instructions to draw your roof, and you shouldn't go too far wrong. So the first instruction is telling us to indicate a wall line that the roof is on. What PlansXpress will do is it will take the wall plate height from the wall that you click on. So it doesn't actually matter which of the extension walls we click on. If you click on the back wall, just as an example, so it now knows the wall plate height. Now the next instruction says indicate the outer corner of the building. So in the case of our lean-to roof, the outer corner means the bottom of the gable. So if we click on the back left corner of the gable, the outer corner of the left gable, so that's step 2 done. Now it says indicate the second corner for the width of the roof. So what we need to do is we need to click on the top of the gable, so where it joins the building, the existing building here. So you might need to zoom in a bit to check you're clicking on the right position. Once you've found an intersection point, you know you're in the right place. Click the left mouse button. So we've marked out the width of the roof, and now we just need to indicate the length of the building. So you'll need to scroll out, press down that scroll wheel to move across. So locate the outer corner of the opposite side of the extension. You should find an endpoint there. And then click on that point at the bottom of the gable. And after a moment, your roof lines appear in red on the drawing. Once you've done that, a box pops up asking you if you want to add any extra items such as a flat ceiling, vaulted ceiling, purlins, binders and rainwater pipes. So let's say we want to draw a vaulted ceiling for this extension, so we'll click yes. Then it goes to the list of different options. Do you want to place an area of flat ceiling? Well, no, we don't. Do you want to place an area of vaulted ceiling? Yes, we do. Have a look at the dimensions wizard. We're going to skip through it for now. You might just want to check the rafter centres, whether you want to insulate the rafters, whether we want to plaster and decorate. If you're happy with all those options, click finish. Now follow the instructions to draw your ceiling. So first it says select the eaves line. So we're going to click on the eaves line. So that's the line at the back of the extension here, at the bottom of the roof. And then it says give start point. So what we need to do is click around the perimeter of the extension room with the cursor in the same way as we did for the perimeter insulation. So find an end point at one corner. So we're marking out where the ceiling is going to go. Find the next end point, click, and continue in the same way. You might want to zoom in because it's easy to click. Once you've got multiple things on your drawing, it's easy to click slightly the wrong point and end up with wonky lines. So zoom in, click on the endpoint, zoom out, hold down the scroll wheel to move your drawing page around, then click back to where you started. Press the escape key. So we've drawn all the way around the perimeter of the room, and then we've pressed the escape key. So now it's saying, do you want to place another area of vaulted ceiling? We can click no. And then it's going to say, do you want to click purlins? You would obviously add them at this point, but we're going to whiz through these for now and click no. We don't need binders either, or rainwater pipes at the moment. But if you wanted, you could place your down pipes and so on. Okay, so that's the roof in place. Now, of course, you might want to have a look at the 3D model to see how the extension looks, and also as a visual checklist to make sure you haven't forgotten anything. So if you go to the Views and 3D tab and check that the 3D preview button is highlighted in grey. If it's not, click it. That switches on the 3D preview. If you have the full version of PlansXpress and you can't see the 3D preview, it may be that it's hidden on one of these tabs on the right hand side of your screen. So if you can locate the 3D view tab and you'll see your 3D preview appears. If you want to make this 3D view window bigger, you can do that. If you place your cursor over the edge of the window to the right hand side of the scroll bar there, you can hold down your left mouse button and drag the window to make it wider. You can also do the same at the bottom if you want to make it deeper. So you can make your 3D window bigger. Of course you can rotate your model because we're looking at the back of it, because it's the same orientation as your drawing. So to move your model around, you can, once your cursor's hovering over the model, you can zoom in and zoom out using your scroll wheel, just in the same way as you do on the drawing page. You can also hold down the left mouse button. So hold down the left mouse button and rotate your model around. So you can rotate it left and right, and you can rotate it down and up. See it from the underside if you want to. If you ever get yourself in a bit of a tiz and you want to reset it, press the home icon, reset view button, which is at the top of the 3D view window. So at the moment I'm looking at my drawing in textured mode. If you have the takeoff version, you will just have this solid view. If you have the full version, you can look at it in textured mode or wireframe mode and so on. It's one of the benefits of the full version. So there we have it. We can see that we've drawn our bifolds, we've put our windows in, we've got our roof, our slab, and so on. Obviously this is a very simple job we've done here, but it demonstrates all the basic principles as to how you draw in PlansXpress. So what we're going to do before we finish off today, we are going to save our drawing. We've been a bit naughty really, probably should have saved a bit earlier after all this work. At the top of your screen on the left there is a save icon, which is like a floppy disk, if you can remember those. So if you click the save button and find somewhere that you can easily locate again, because we're going to need to locate this file to import it into Estimator Express. So I'm going to put it on my desktop. So locate the place where you want to save it, type in a file name. Let's call it number 6 Pennine Way. So type in number 6 Pennine Way. If we all do the same, then hopefully we can find the file when we need it. Once you've done that, click Save. Okay, so that's the drawing saved. Just a quick note, if you finish doing your drawing and you want to switch your construction lines off, if you go to Drawing and Annotation or Drawing Tools if you're using Takeoff version, there is a button called Toggle Visibility on the construction line section. That just hides the construction lines, so you can switch that on or off. So toggle visibility, that's quite a handy one. If you know you've completely finished with them and you're not going to use them again, you can also delete your construction lines to tidy up your drawing. Okay, and then click Save again. So congratulations, you've finished Module 1 of the Takeoff and Estimate course.